Okay?
This question is about trade agreements. In 1993, President Clinton signed NAFTA into law, making it easier for trade between Mexico and the United States. GATT, under the supervision of the World Trade Organization, systematically broke down trade barriers between the USA and most other countries. The FTAA, Free Trade Area of the Americas, threatens to extend this to 13 more countries. All these laws make it easier for American manufacturing companies to seek cheaper labor in countries where human rights violations are not punished and laws protecting the environment are lax or completely absent. How would you change these trade agreements to stimulate American companies to keep manufacturing jobs in America, or would you keep the status quo?
I definitely would not keep the status quo. The first thing I would, as I have mentioned, do is make sure we have the majority of citizens making these decisions and not a handful of elected officials who get bribed by lobbyists. That's why we got NAFTA and these other bills, trade policies that really benefit super rich corporations. That's all that our government is of the government is a government of the rich, by the rich, for the rich. If we don't change that, none of these policies are going to change either. But absolutely, I think these policies are outrageous. We should not be bringing the rest of the world, we should not let the rest of the world bring us down to their standard of living. We should be bringing the rest of the world up to our standard of living, with our standards, not theirs. But right now, we're letting the free market work, which is slave labor rules. And it's working for China. It's not working for our country. That is the problem.
Okay, JL, you have a minute to rebut.
A minute, okay. Actually, Harry, we agree on the slave labor issue and the unfair business practices with China, NAFTA, GATT, used against the U.S. Manufacturing, which is why all our corporations are essentially set up overseas or south of the border. And that does need to change, but the only way to change is to kill the Federal Reserve, bring the monetary system back to a U.S. currency based on the mixed metals. And the only way we can do that is to declare the national debt, the massive unemployment, the tax base that is no longer existent as a national security matter, to put Congress on notice. Congress and the lobbyists, by the way, on notice that they will be tried for sedition and they will have everything seized. That threat alone will put them in line, and we can pass the plans to get done what needs to be done, excuse me. And the president has the power to do that because he's the top cop. He is the law enforcement of the country.
Okay, Andre, you have a minute?
Okay. Guys, I honestly think that we fiercely agree on many of these points, on many of these topics. As I said, I think we go about it different ways, but I think we fiercely agree. Number one, I think we need to roll back that legislation. That does create an environment where the government is accountable to the people. And I also think you're right. None of these trade agreements are fair, and they are not American industry oriented. It's not in America's best interest, and that's what we need to focus on. And yes, we do need to bring the rest of the world up to our standard, but first, we need to make sure that that standard has been implemented correctly here. So until we can actually say that we're doing a fair business here in the U.S., and I agree, we need a fair economic system, and we don't have that here. Until we have that here, we can't push that, and we can't bring anyone else up to our standard until we've done it here ourselves.
Well, no, I was just saying, I don't think the trade agreements are in the interest of our country just because they're in the interest of multinational corporations.
Okay.
Who don't really pay taxes here. They want all the benefits of our country, but they don't want to pay their fair share. I don't agree with any of that. I don't think the majority of people in our country would agree with that. And if the majority of the people could be in charge, yeah, and based on what we've said thus far, I think my position is that I don't have any faith in our existing government that's run by lobbyists. They wrote the laws. They're obeying the law. They're doing everything they're doing is legal. It's because the lobbyists write the laws. Who else would read a 2,000-page bill? except lobbyists who wrote it. That's the problem. If you talk about my amendment to put the people in charge, it's a 26-word sentence. That's the kind of bills we should see. It's simple and clear and concise. Oh, lobbyists don't want that. How can they walk away with a store if it's obvious and clear and crisp and clean? No,
Right.
They want a very complex, confusing tax code, a very complex, confusing legal system,
Right.
and that's what they've got, and that's why they've got all the money.
Okay. JL, do you want to respond to that?
Well, working with Congress to control Congress is an impossibility. Same with the lobbyists. They need to be placed under a threat of sedition, treason, whichever you'd like to call it, and for variations of fraud. And there's plenty of laws on the books that they have committed, and they must be held accountable. And just the threat from the president alone will put them in line, and everything else is just like a walk through the park, for no better term.
Andre?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Harry on this. The fact of the matter is we do have a lot of lobbyists and large corporations or international conglomerates that are running this country right now. And yes, we have to roll back that legislation until it's accountable, until the government's accountable to the people. There's nothing that the president can do or anyone else, because if the president doesn't have the support of the general public, then he's really not going to be effective against Congress.